Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's Monday review time, and as you can see, I'm once again joined by Rhys from the brilliant German Gills channel to unfortunately bring you another reflection of what was a complete and utter horror show at the Priestfield on Saturday afternoon. Gills going down by 2-0 at the hands of Nigel Clough's Mansfield Town. In truth, 2-0 flattered us massively. Rhys, I'm going to go right back to the beginning. 2 o'clock, the team came out.
Yep.
Two changes. One was enforced. We knew that Scott Cashkett was likely to miss out with a groin issue, which was a real shame because he's played himself into some really good form. It's probably slightly surprising that it was not Jordan Green coming in. It was Lewis Walker, but I had no issue with that. I thought, right, we're going to play a front two. We're going to try and be on the front foot. Couldn't fathom why Ryan Law was left out though. So can you enlighten me after his performance on Tuesday night?
No, because I watched the game Tuesday night, and I thought one of the things I wanted to say about, I don't know if you managed to watch the game up at Grimsby on the box, but I just, throughout that whole game with Law on the pitch, he was one of the best players, and I thought, oh, actually, he's found his way into the team, he's found his rhythm, found a bit of a groove. And throughout that Grimsby game, I thought, oh, we look Fred. Lest we forget, we put three balls in the back of the net, and I thought, okay, so something's happened here. Page has been turned, and I thought Law orchestrated quite a lot of that. For him to be left out of this squad was the biggest shock out of me for me as well. And I was quite surprised with that, and I can't work out why. I genuinely can't work out why. Also, like you said, I couldn't work out why Green wasn't playing as well. But I understand that giving Lewis Walker and Mandron 2 up top, I kind of understood that. But for Law not to play, considering like I thought he earned a place into this team for Saturday, was just bizarre. And for me, I have no logical explanation of why that could have been the case.
No, and I think
I wish I had one.
I think you and I too have plenty that said the same, because I remember even the goal line clearance Tuesday night as well that kept us level, didn't he? And
yeah,
I tweeted out Wednesday, I thought it was his best performance in a Gill shirt. So I really couldn't work that one out. It meant moving Robbie McKenzie to the other side. We changed the system again. We had a winger out of position at right wing back. We know that we waxed lyrical about Adalukin's performance at Swindon at home, in the game where he played at right back for 80 minutes. But that's not his role. That's not where we need to be playing him. So I thought we negated any threat that he was going to cause. Don't know. It just invited pressure on from the get-go.
Straight away, and that's what Mansfield did. And we're going to talk about the first half, no doubt, very shortly. But yeah, it did invite pressure on, and yeah, I thought, if we had Law on, there's a bit of shape, and people would play more in their natural positions. So I just thought that this setup, I thought it seemed a little bit. It was a bit felt forced, if you know what I mean. Everyone was kind of like sort of playing half out of position a lot of the time, and I thought there was no cohesion there in that team selection. It felt to me anyway.
No, you're spot on. Couldn't understand it. We've been brave with the back four the last two, and then we just invited Mansfield and invited trouble. Haji Minoga as well, quickly. Obviously, absolute disaster of a debut. Did he deserve to come straight back in? For me, I can't understand that either.
I mean, it's one of those. You got two sides to this, haven't you? You got one. Everyone makes a mistake. Let's get back on and let's make amends. So you need that second chance. If you miss a penalty, I don't like it when the striker then doesn't take the second one. So that's kind of how I viewed that. But at the same time, young lad, I would probably go in Harris's. I would go, right. You know what? Get right back on. And let's get a monogram in the second half at least, or if there's an injury, so he can actually watch the game and see how it's developed and what impact he could make. But I suppose Harris took the former option with that and said, right, you made a mistake, go out there and prove to everyone in that stadium that you are what you're worth. And I think that's probably the approach that he took. Did I agree with it? Actually, I didn't. I wanted Wright to play. So, I would prefer that.
Well, I just didn't want him on the side. I wanted McKenzie at right back and Ryan Law in the side for me. And
yeah.
Did he prove his worth? Probably not, and we'll get to that a bit later in the video. First half, this isn't pleasant, Gills fans. I do apologise. There's not going to be much in the terms of positivity, unfortunately, because they didn't give us anything to be positive about at the end of the day. Words I've used to describe it, Rhys, and I saw your tweet that came along with your video yesterday, and it's pretty much the same lines: woeful, insipid, half-assed. We just look so far off the pace all over the pitch for the entirety of the game. And I know we'll get to the second period, but we could have been 4-0 down at the break.
And do you know what? We should have been 4-0 down. We should have been 4-0 down. I mean, the Manchester were knocking on the door pretty quickly. I mean, it took only 10 minutes, 11 minutes, and that's when I thought, that's it. This is, if we concede at any point in this, if we go behind, we've lost, because we do not, there's no spark. And it kind of looked like we were trying to again fight for a 0-0. And I thought, that's not great viewing for everyone. But that just fell on its backside essentially. And
yeah, it did.
and it was poor from the get-go. And the team just looked, they were chasing shadows the whole game. They couldn't string 2 or 3 passes together. And when, like I was saying yesterday, I was thinking, like, so we haven't been scoring goals, but also like we don't even look like threatening. Like that's another step. That's like a step back from at least trying to sort of have a few shots on target. Like I just don't. It was a complete juxtaposition of what we had at Grimsby, where we looked threatening. Today, on Saturday, I was like, "What? What is this? What's going on?" And I can't explain it apart from it was just looked like a conference south side. That's generally what it felt like to me.
Which is only 2 divisions away, Gills fans.
Oh God, yeah, Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I totally agree. It looked like we just chucked 11 people together and said, "Go and play football." That was how bad it was. I mean, the goal is a very good finish from Lucas Atkins. He adjusted his body shape really well. I mean, if people have seen Erling Haaland's goal in the Champions League in the week where he manages to adjust his body, I'm not saying it's on that level, but it's very, very good technically. But do we do enough in the build-up? We don't get. We kept leaving Robbie McKenzie isolated with the right wing back, who was out and out quick, was direct, kept skipping past him, kept getting balls into a danger area. Again, we didn't learn. Ball comes into the box. I think he's the only one in there. Do we cut it out? Do we block the shot? We don't do enough. And then the penalty. I'm going to let you talk us through because Glenn Morris, one of the most experienced pros in this division, one of the best keepers in this division. He's proven that over the last 5 or 6 seasons. Has had 2 absolute horror shows.
Yeah, he has. And then so I was looking at Twitter when the penalty was given, and I was hearing the response to the stadium as well and it sounded like people were really getting the referees back. But obviously, I have the view of the television, and as soon as it happened, I'm like, why has he punched him in the head? what's he doing?
It was a stonewall penalty that we couldn't understand why there were people booing the official because it was awful from our point of view.
Like I even when I did my video and as it was going in live, I was like, that's a penalty, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be like I'm giving too much respect here to the Mansfield referee. I was like, I hope the replay proves me wrong a little bit, but I couldn't find any way to what I do when a penalty is dubious, I tend to view it as what percentage of referees would give this. So maybe 50%, 40%. Like that's like 100. Like,
we can go. Would we have been shouting for a penalty if that was their defender and their centre back on Mika Mandron? We'd have been screaming penalty, 100%.
Absolutely, 100%. So for me, it's a real bit of a flash of red for Morris, who's been excellent all season. Actually, kept us in a lot of games. That for me, we'll go through player ratings, but that for me was not one of his brighter moments so far this season.
But there is a bright moment, Gills fans. We will get one in. He saved the penalty.
He did save the penalty.
It was a very brief riposte, unfortunately, because less than 10 minutes later, they scored again. One simple ball through the middle. The player ran off the centre-backs, skips round Morris, and Maxime ends up in a heap in the back of the net. 2-0. Essentially game over because we've not scored 2 at home since August of last year.
Jeez, I mean, and the other thing as well is just when I saw before firstly, we've saved the penalty. And I hear the crowd are going that's the biggest cheer they've put on the ground all season. Like, let's be honest here. And then suddenly that you think, right, okay, I've seen games like this before when you get a goal back, it's 1-1, and then suddenly the away team are thinking, oh, I wish we scored the penalty because that's changed the game completely. But no, we didn't use that opportunity to get something from it to push forward a bit because Mansfield would have been a little bit shaky having missed a penalty for sure. And all they've done is just pumped a ball down. I mean, Mansfield had they could have chosen what channel to run in half the time at the back, and they chose one 10 minutes later from the penalty, and they go around the keeper and put it in the back of the net. And yeah, it was just painful to watch. I could just see it coming a mile off, and it was.
Yeah, I think we all said in the ground it was like you said, the penalty, we saved it right. We've not been good for 20 minutes, but now let's use this as a platform to kick on it and improve. But the pattern of the game literally stayed exactly the same. They kept the ball, they played through us. We just punted it long. We looked aimless, hopeless at times, dare I say as well. That wasn't the end of it. It should have been 3 or 4-0 at the end of by the end of that half because Stephen McLaughlin, I think, should score. He drags one wide after being played again. Another, like you said, they can literally pick which channel they want to get him behind. Him. Played him in, and he's dragged it wide. He should hit the target, and a header right at the end as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was looking at a Mansfield forum recently for this game. and all of them were saying like this score was flattering for us, and we've lost 2-0. Like it's and that half that we should have been 4-0 down, and actually if that had happened, I'd have been fair enough. That's about right. And Mansfield would probably be quite annoyed that they haven't sorted out their goal difference from this game, because they should be a couple of goals more than what they got that on Saturday. Really, they'll be disappointed to only walk away with 2-0. Like,
100%. I mean, they were comfortable, and you're not going to get many easier away days than coming to Priestfield at the moment, unfortunately. And we'll get onto that tweet that I put out Sunday morning in a little while. But a very simple and comfortable afternoon. In terms of our attacking threat that half, I think Robbie McKenzie hit a free kick into the town end. Robbie McKenzie blasted over into the town end, and Elkan Baggett had a header straight at the keeper, which was very comfortable. Aside from that, we couldn't string 3 passes together. Second half, we made a change. We put on Ryan Law. Too late, unfortunately. We took off. Who did we take off?
Minoga for Ryan Law.
Haji Minoga, that was it. So we went back to a back 4, which meant that we got Adalukan a bit further forward. I've written second half non-event because it really was.
It was an absolute non-event. I mean, when I make my videos, quite often, like when I edit it and chop it up, and obviously I'm speaking when the actions happen, but usually when the action's not happening, I'm just absorbing. I'm not saying much. Like, I think this was the game where I said the least in the second half in terms of action. There was nothing happening for me.
No, I'm similar.
And I was it was completely abject from every angle. No matter what lens you put on, it was awful. I just couldn't. I mean, did we steady the ship? No, I think Mansfield just managed the game out like any decent team would do, and we just couldn't find a way to penetrate them at all.
They played in second, third gear, absolute tops, and we still didn't lay a glove on them at all, did we? Unfortunately, I think we had one shot. Ben Reeves put one into the Raynham end. Aside from that, it was all huff and puff and no end product again. I mean, people can come and say, well, we kept a clean sheet second period, but Mansfield were playing well within themselves.
No, absolutely. If people were saying that's a positive, then fine. But then, really, that's the positive from that. I'd like to see us push on. Oh, do you know what? I wouldn't have minded us losing 4 or 5-0. At least we would have gone for it. I'd like a little bit of spark somewhere. But they I don't know, just seemed gutless going forward, and it just was completely unimaginative the whole second half for me.
Yeah, sums it up. We made a couple of changes. I'm just looking. You said similar to what your match day live. I'm just looking at mine. We started talking at half time at 9 minutes of the match day live. The whole thing lasted 12.5 minutes.
Oh, there you go.
The second half was 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, the same for me. Yeah,
I think a minute of that was me videoing substitutions. So that tells you all you need to know about our performance and what actually happened. Mansfield made their changes, rested, rotated. We brought on more substitutes, but none of them really had an impact. Joker Bodie, we'll get to him, I think, and Ryan Law that we've already mentioned. But all in all, another very disappointing and very concerning afternoon, Rhys.
I think so. I think concerning is a good word to use. It was a sad and sorry afternoon, and unfortunately, I think Gills fans have become pretty much subject to this now, week in, week out, and that's where the concern lies. Actually, I'm sure people, if they can get out to not go into the stadium, having bought a season ticket, they'd be pleased. That's not the right way round.
Well, no, I know plenty that have season tickets that went to Nottingham and watched Kent cricket instead because they was in a one-day final. So
exactly,
they made the right call.
I think they did make the right call. In fairness to them,
you could drink beer in the ground.
Yeah.
Score points.
Yeah, actually gets. Yeah,
and they won a trophy.
Yeah, that's a good day all round. I can't imagine that happened at Priestfield at the moment. I'll tell you that.
No, nothing at all in terms of performance, experience, enjoyment. There's a girl who I think is it Paige who does her game too for Gills. I think she's the ambassador. Chore, and I think that sums up being a Gills supporter at the moment really well. It feels like a chore. If I didn't have a season ticket, I wouldn't go. I was contemplating doing Hartlepool away. That persuaded me to stick the £100 back in my pocket and save my money.
No, and I don't blame you. And anyone that's doing that, fair play to them.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you're people that are doing that, and I had this chat with someone after the last away game, fair play. If you're doing
absolutely.
It, 100% hat tip to you because it's a long way to go to be served up.
Yeah, and no, I'm in a fortunate position where I've got to sit at my computer and watch it, but I wouldn't be going to Hartlepool away, put it that way.
No, it's not the most appealing day at the best of times, and that's no disrespect to Hartlepool, but for Gills fans, it's a long trip.
It's a long one.
And we don't score goals and we concede too many. let's talk about Mansfield
Yeah,
for a little while because they were very good. I know Neil Harris. I watched Neil Harris's interview on iFollow. I thought it was a bit
yes,
weird. I
it
won't
was an
lie.
odd one.
There were some comments where he said we were poor, but then he said, but they were better than us. So you have to hold your hands up. But then he was digging the players out sort of indirectly, and I couldn't quite work out whether he was holding back because it was in public. I know he said that there was a lot said between the four walls of the dressing room, and I understand that. You don't berate them all in public all the time, but these players have got to start taking accountability for themselves. And you can tell when we're not playing well because it's very quiet on social media. There's nothing from the players on Twitter.
I mean, one of the things I want to say is I watched that as well yesterday, well, on Saturday evening, Neil Harris interview, and I thought what was really like. Usually, he's quite clear and he's very articulate the way he comes across when he broadcasts his message and post-match interviews. But like for me, the questions given to him were fine, but he kept going back and back to the same answers over and over again. It seemed like he just didn't want to have that interview at all. And he was trying to get shot of all of the journalists there, and I thought that was
potentially aware of what he'd said straight after Rotherham as well. Do you think so? He was sort of biting his tongue and maybe sort of just dancing around the subject a little bit rather than really having a go at some of his players.
Maybe that's the case, and I think maybe he's reflected on that and gone, "Oh, I need to be careful what I say because if I just start berating players or maybe dropping a name here and there." He's going to get himself into all sorts of problems later down the line.
Well, yeah, and essentially he's got to manage these players until January. So
exactly. But do you know what you said a really, really good thing there, Matt, is actually, these players need to be accountable for how they're playing at the moment. I think there's one of the things that people and football fans lose sight of. Yeah, the manager, it does fall on their shoulders, but the players need to take accountability themselves. And yesterday's, for me, is a great example of that, where I think the players should hold their hands up and go, we did not play well today. We underperformed and we should be apologising to our manager. And that's kind of how I feel at the moment. I'm not sticking up for Harris here because I think there's a couple of tactical changes.
And our paying supporters as well.
Exactly. And one of my best mates is a Sunderland supporter who are flying high at the moment. And he looks down to us and he lives in Medway Towns. He sometimes goes to his Gillingham play just because Sunderland's a long way to travel every other week. And he says, I wouldn't go there at the moment because I've got so many, I'd rather go watch Maidstone or Sheppey or Chatham if I was going to spend some money in the football because it's not the place he would go to.
Sheppey's ground is literally a 5-minute drive from where I live.
You go past it on the way to Regressing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the sad state of affairs that plenty of people are deciding to go and watch local non-league football, which is great for non-league. And I'm not saying
of course
that they
it
shouldn't,
is.
but as a Gillingham supporter, it's a little bit heartbreaking. We've gone off on a tangent there, Rhys.
We have. Sorry, that's my fault.
That was both of us. We're going to look at what I call Stag Star, and that's Mansfield Town's best player on the day.
Okay.
I've written mine down. I'll let you go first this week because I went first on everything last week, and bless you, it looked like you just copied me all the time.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go. I'm stuck between two on my one, but I'm going to go. Is it Kellen Gordon? His name, I think it is.
We've done it again.
You've done it again. That's who I went with. I thought that my other
down, Gills fans. We do not pre-plan this beforehand.
Mine's on the PC. I've typed mine up. It's all in front of me here. So I don't get. But yeah, so it was Kellen Gordon or George Lapsley, I think is the other guy. But I thought Gordon looked pretty good. He got the assist. And I think, did he get subbed off at the end? I think he did with about 9 minutes to go. Yeah, about 10 minutes to go. But I just thought he had. I did look at some stats, actually. He had 60 touches on the ball that game. He had 54% accuracy of his passing. But the thing that really stood out is he put so many good balls into the box.
Three key passes. That was it. That was the thing. 3 key passes that just split us apart. And that's kind of like that's your playmaker engine you want in a team. And for me, that's where he's shone. And when I was listening to the commentary, watching the game live, just Gordon, and it was just that over and over again. And I thought, it's not often I learn the opposition's names that quickly, but that one I learned pretty quickly because he was just so active in the game and so clinical. So for me, and I'm one day we're going to disagree, but yeah, for me, it was Kellen Gordon was man of the match, and I gave him like an 8.5 or something like that. Totally agree. And to add to that as well, defensively, I had a look 6 out of 7 Jules he won as well, so he did his job the other way from right wing backs. Very, very good. I just thought he was everything that we're not at the moment. He was incisive, he was direct, he was brave, he was bright, he was confident. all things we want our players to be. Unfortunately, all things that we're not doing enough. Unfortunately, we move on to this is going to be a tricky one. Gills, man of the match. I was inclined to give it to those players that didn't get on because, unfortunately, it was such a performance that they were probably the only ones that came out with reputation at least still intact to a degree.
Well, don't you start? You start players always at 6, don't you? So
yeah,
by default, they've already done a lot better than everyone else.
But they have to play 15 minutes to get that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, fair enough.
It's not quite that easy.
I mean, do you want me to go first for this one?
Yeah, go on. You go again.
Okay, so I might say something quite contentious here. This might be a bit more interesting for a change. So I've got 2 players. I don't know how long did GITBTV play for. So he played for he came
29 on minutes.
Okay, so he does count. So he firstly showed a little bit of physicality up front that we're missing. I think he showed a lot of passion, a lot of desire to do something on that pitch. Do you know what? When he got that yellow card, I was like, oh, good. It was kind of like there was a little bit of passion, a bit of Gillingham in him, which I really quite liked. So for the time he was on the pitch, I thought he actually showed a little bit of promise. And this might be a bit contentious, but actually, out of all of the defenders we had on the pitch, I thought, even though he made a couple of errors, I thought Elkan Baggott did okay. He did okay.
We're putting this in the best of a very bad bunch, Gills fans. I think so.
Yeah,
and this is shot down on YouTube or
I was just about, but like he made quite a lot, won a few ground duels, a few aerial duels, and he was doing the sensible thing of trying to put the ball out of play rather than because I see like what Max Aimer does that used to really annoy me. He was trying to play the ball out when he didn't need to under a high amount of pressure. But for me yesterday was a little bit more no nonsense. He made a couple of errors by all means, and he wasn't the best at all. But actually, in a team like that, I thought, you know what, I can see he's trying to do the right thing. And for me, that's okay. But amongst everyone else in that back line, it was terrible. But I'm literally clutching at straws here, and I wanted to say something a bit contentious.
No, that's fine. I had my 2 that I got it down to were both substitutes, and I think that tells Gills fans. They know anyway. Gills fans are, they're intelligent people. They know that it was a poor performance, but I thought Ryan Law made us a lot more solid. I went for Joe GITBTV.
Yeah.
And the thing that you said about the yellow card, and I thought, at least he's gone and rattled someone. At least he's been willing to put himself about and go through someone. Obviously, you don't want him doing it all the time and getting sent off like Hadji Manoga a couple of weeks ago. But I thought, he's come on and he showed some willing. I gave him a 6, I think.
Okay. Was that GITBTV a 6?
And that's man of the match, which, again, says all you need to know about our performance as a whole. But yeah, like you said, 29 minutes played. Didn't cause loads of problems in terms of an attacking threat and getting the ball into the final third, but he won 3 out of his 5 duels as well. So he's working hard. He's shown willingness to try and help the team off the ball as well. Earned a couple of free kicks as well. I thought out of everybody that came on or started the game, I thought he was probably the only one, or maybe one of 2 or 3 at an absolute push that really busted a gut when he was on the pitch. And that is, again, is a damning indictment of the performance.
Yeah, he gets a 6.5 for me, and then that 0.5 comes from the yellow card. Idea. It's like that's where it comes from. Because, like you said, he had that little bit of physicality, tried to shake him up a little bit, and that's I think, if we did that from the get-go, I think Mansfield would have been shaken up a little bit, and we might have created a few opportunities, but we just out battled and out physicality, if you know what I mean. I'm playing stupid word games here, but that's kind of how it was. For me, that we just were bullied off the ball. That goes with
lasagna defense from the first episode that Rhys joined us for. He's just invented a new dictionary.
I'll get it typed up. But yeah, I think what I was really disappointed with, just to finish this off, out of all the substitutes, I thought Jordan Green was very ghostly in his introduction to the second half.
We literally said on the Matchday Live, Rhys, I think me and Stocky kept saying, I don't think he touched the ball for a good 15 minutes. And I think the first time he did touch it, he ran it out of play.
Yeah. And I thought that, but yeah, it's just
that not that he had loads of the ball. I'm not saying he had loads of opportunities to do stuff with it. So it's difficult to give him, you don't want to be overly critical, but at the same time, substitutes are meant to come on and change the game, and they didn't.
But because normally when he's on the pitch, I notice it, but that was the first time I didn't, and I was like, "Oh, is he on?" I genuinely he came on the pitch for Adelac, and then I didn't really see anything for it could have been 10 men for me, but that probably sums up all of it, really.
It does, sadly. And if you're still watching, like we said last time, thank you, and we really do appreciate it, because this is hard work at the moment. And me and Rhys have had this chat on Twitter, and it's not great having to produce content that we know that's miserable, negative, and generally downbeat. But
yeah,
we try and say it as it is, and there's no point in us sitting here and pretending it was better than it was, because then neither channel has any sort of credence or credibility. So
exactly.
let's get on to Gills' ratings, and then we can go and enjoy the rest of our day. I've written mine down, so we'll go through it a player at a time. Okay. I'm not going to dwell too much on each of them because this is depressing enough as it is, quite frankly. Glenn Morris, I gave him 4.5 as a performance, but I added on half because he saved a penalty. So 5 for me.
4 for me.
Fair enough. Back three from right to left. I went Minoga 4, Emar 5, Baggett. Minoga 4, Emar 4.5, Baggett 4.5.
So I went Minoga 4, Emar 4, and I put Baggett at 5.5.
Okay, that's fair enough. So not a huge deal of difference as a collective.
No.
I've gone then. We'll go from right to left again. So starting at right wing back, I went Adalukan 5.
Adalukan 5. Yeah, so I would hang on.
Again, because he was out of position, so I didn't want to be too harsh.
Yeah.
He's not playing in a role that he should be.
So I was mean. I gave him 4.5. I mean,
fair enough. It wasn't. No, it wasn't great, but like maybe I sort of subconsciously added half on because of the fact that he shouldn't have been playing there to start with. When you've got 2 right wing backs on the bench and you've got one over the other side of the park.
Yeah.
Middle two, I thought were really poor yesterday, and for 2 such experienced players, I thought they were awful. I gave Stuart O'Keefe and Sean Williams 4.5 each.
No, I gave Stuart O'Keefe 4, and I gave Sean Williams a 3.5. I thought he was one of the weaker elements of that midfield. Actually, I thought for someone that's got such an experienced head, I thought this is not this. I
genuinely thought I wouldn't be the positive one with the ratings this week.
No, I had a bad afternoon yesterday. But but for sure. But the reason that it's so low for Sean Williams is because I know he could do a lot better. He's got a lot of experience, and he didn't change the game, and he has that in his arsenal to do that, and it just didn't happen yesterday, and that's why I thought for his experience, that's a low blow for me.
Fair enough. And Robbie McKenzie, I gave him 5.5. I thought he got isolated, which wasn't his fault. But he's one of them players that just seems to be, like we mentioned, Joe Gabodi was probably the only one. McKenzie might have been another one that was willing to run through a brick wall and try and keep things happening and try and do his job. So 5.5.
Yeah, I think that I agree with you. 5.5. That's what I had for that for him as well. Yeah.
Ben Reeves slightly further forward in the 10. I gave a 5. Probably one of his worst performances of the season. Didn't influence the game. His delivery was poor. His passing was off.
There was a moment in that second half where the ball was fizzed across by Ben Reeves, and no one reacted to that ball. And I thought, is that because no one's taken chances, or is that a really bad ball by Rhys? But then he kept putting some really interesting passes here and then. He just wasn't at the game that day at all.
No.
And so I gave him 4.5, actually.
Fair enough. I'm still really positive. Front 2, I gave Lewis Walker a 5 and Mika Mandron a 4.5. I mean, Lewis Walker was slightly better, I thought, when I thought he should have stayed on. But again, they didn't offer anything, let's be honest.
Yeah, both 4.5s for me.
Fair enough. Substitutes, and I think they all did qualify for a rating because they all played at least 15 minutes. I gave Ryan Law a 6.
Yeah, for me, it didn't change. I was nearly pushing to a 6.5, but that would have been a little bit too generous. So 6 for me for Ryan Law as well.
Jordan Green 5. Again, didn't get lots of the ball, but just didn't do anything when he did have it once or twice.
Yeah, I gave him a 5.5, just because the time he was on the pitch, maybe he didn't have time to get into the game. But yeah, 5 or 5.5 is.
Joe Gabodi, who've already mentioned, I gave 6. You gave 6.5. I think you said. And Alex McDonald 5. Didn't really have. I think he tried one ball, didn't he? It went out for a goal kick. And again, we've said it over and over. That summed up the performance, sadly.
Yeah. 5.5 for me again. That was a similar vein. Yeah.
And then quickly, before you go, Rhys, I've got a couple of things I want to talk about. I put a tweet out today, Sunday. 28 games at home since the start of 21-22. 5 wins, 10 draws, 13 defeats. In that time, we scored 14 goals, 0.5 per game. We've conceded 40. We've kept 11 clean sheets. I did try again to put some positivity into the tweet, but we blanked in 16 of them 28 games, which is absolutely horrendous. And we're taking 0.89 points per game over that period. What has to change?
The first thing is it looks like there's a lack of confidence throughout the whole team, and we people watching this, we all work and we're all working, and people might be watching this and they go to school. And no matter what, if you're doing well at your job, if you're doing well at your schoolwork, and then you get a little bit of confidence, then you start to take a few more risks and you start to gamble a bit more. And then if that pays off, then your confidence really grows. And that could be exponential. However, it can be a decline as well, and a huge cycle of decline. And I think we're really down that cycle of decline rabbit hole that exists. And it's just trying, when you say we're in a rut, actually, like, we really are in a rut. And all that needs to change is we need to have a bit of a streak, something where not necessarily we're winning, but we need a couple of goals here and there, give a reason for the fans to be cheering at the stadium. And just a Gillingham performance. I remember watching Gills in 1998, 1999, and it was, I miss those days where, even if we got thumped, you certainly, we went down fighting. And that the last 2 seasons or so, I just don't see that at all. I see us falling over and we're like made of cardboard. But I think ultimately, we could argue tactics, we could argue, the team selection. I think that obviously are factors. But for me, I think every single person that's linked to this football club has just a huge lack of confidence. And I think that plays quite a significant factor in what we're trying to achieve here at the club. I don't know if you agree with me. I think some people would disagree with me there, but I think confidence is a huge part of that, amongst other things, obviously. But I think that's a huge one for me.
Yeah, and then if you make it more specific to football, obviously the things that you do, like if a ball gets fizzed across the box and you're confident, then you hit it first time. Whereas now at the moment, you probably want an extra touch. You probably pass when you should shoot, and that type of thing. But yeah, we don't have a magic wand, myself or Rhys, unfortunately. And the people ultimately, they can change it are Neil Harris, Dave Livermore and his coaching staff, and then people that go out and cross that white line at 3 o'clock on a Saturday or 7:45 on a Tuesday. One final question quickly before I let you go. There's been murmurings, and I don't begrudge talking about it because it is part of the problem. At what point does Neil Harris become under pressure? Because he got a free swing last season. I get that. He was working with someone else's mess, and we've said that before. But regardless of budgets or anything else now, whether they're his first choice players or his second choice or his third choice players, this is Neil Harris's squad now. Is he getting the maximum out of them? And he said, judge him after 10 to 12 games. We're at 9 and we're third bottom.
It's coming up, isn't it? So for me, it's a funny one. When does he come under pressure? I looked at September fixtures and I thought, actually, out of the September fixtures, we should be aiming to get 7 points at least. We're not going to get that now. Actually, we've got 2 games left or the 1 game left in September, which is, we've got, I think Sutton's the 1st of October.
Yeah.
But there needs, I think if we come out of after the Sutton game and we're still without a goal, without anything to show for it, then I think he's under severe pressure, because it's at that sort of like point where he needs to start thinking about how to improve the team for January if he can. And if he's not the right man for the job, then we need to find a replacement. I think that's way too early to call that. I still think he's the right man for the job. But I do think if this was another manager, they would be under pressure right now. But because it's Neil Harris, I think we have a little bit of dispensation with him, where we give him a little bit just to ease him into this season. But I still. And
also the flip side is we won't attract anyone better. Let's make no bones about that. If Neil Harris goes, we will probably go down the route of Steve Love or an Andy Hessenthaler, jobs for the boys that we've called it before type. I think. So in that sense, Neil Harris for me is 100% still the best option, but he has to be accountable. He has to be part of the problem, and he was part of the problem Saturday for me, because I thought he got his team selection completely wrong.
And I agree with that. I think he got it, considering how well we played at Grimsby. Let's hope that the Grimsby game was a turning point, and then the Mansfield game is an anomaly.
Yeah, let's hope that Grimsby wasn't the blip and that Mansfield was the blip. I think that's probably a good point to finish up today, Rhys, because it's not fun, like we've said, and I appreciate you all watching. Go and check out Rhys's video if you've not done it already. I'm going to sit down and watch it myself, just to gauge if he was more miserable than me throughout the afternoon, to be quite honest. I'll put his details again, but you're all subscribed, you're all following him, I'm sure of it anyway, because it is a brilliant channel.
Thank you.
I'll be back later in the week, hopefully with a Hartlepool fan. who have just sacked their manager. So the dreaded manager
Ooh.
bounce might come into effect next Saturday. Like we've said, if you are travelling up to Hartlepool, then fair play to you. 100% tip my hat.
Absolutely.
I will not be making the trip. I cannot justify spending that amount of money to watch that at the moment, unfortunately. Yes, that is it from us. Sorry, it's negative again. As always, thanks to Rhys, and I'm going to let him end the show with Up the Gills in German.
Okay, like in the show. So, and in German, they would say, Los geht's, Gills.